My name is Dr. Michael Knight. I have been a psychiatrist at Hampstead Hospital in Hampstead, New Hampshire since 1987. On September 21st, 1989, we received a patient by the name of Cynthia Vickers. She suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, depression, and just about every mental disorder they teach you in medical school. If I remember correctly, she was sent to Hampstead when police received complaints of her strange noises and foul odor coming from her apartment. When they arrived, Cynthia charged out of the door, covered in blood, urine, and feces, towards the officers, who subdued her and entered her apartment. What they discovered still chills me to this day. In the bathroom were dozens of cats, skinned alive, wriggling and screaming in agony through pools of their own blood and excrement. The officer later told me, still shaken by what he'd seen, that there must have been an inch of blood in that small bathroom. This officer would later go on to hang himself in a closet in 1993. I was assigned to be Cynthia's psychiatrist. During our first session, she was unresponsive, eerily quiet, and nearly catatonic. Rather than answer my questions, she instead would stare at me with pale gray eyes deeply set into her ghostly, gaunt face. Over time, she began to open up, and I learned that she was raped repeatedly by her father and 3 uncles, sometimes consecutively. When she tried to confront her mother about it, Cynthia's mother beat her for spreading disgusting lies about her father. She exhibited reactive attachment disorder as a child, showing no remorse for abusing and killing small animals. As a teen, she would regularly trap stray cats and take them to an abandoned warehouse where she would beat, torture, and eventually kill them, burning their bodies afterwards. When asked why she targeted her zoosadism towards cats, Cynthia said she enjoyed the way they scream. Being a psychiatrist, hearing these disturbing and sickening confessions is standard protocol. But it was when she described the Happyman that made my hair stand on end. Cynthia explained that when she was 16, she was visited for the first time by the Happyman. She was sitting on her porch looking into the woods behind her home when she heard a man's laughter coming from within the trees. She said she had blinked, and there at the tree line stood a tall, thin man with blue veins snaking under the pale white skin of which was his. Cynthia said he wore dark, loose, blood-stained overalls, and that the skin on his face had been pulled tightly upward and stitched in place, with a nail embedding his upper lip, forming a grotesque smile. In an instant, the man was on her porch, standing over Cynthia. He leaned down and shrieked, "Smile!" before vanishing over the years. Cynthia said she was visited many times with the same occurrences by the Happyman, each time hearing his maniacal laughter before he appeared again. During her stay at Hampstead, Cynthia took to the staring out of the windows into the woods that surrounded the hospital, mumbling incoherently and seemingly never blinking. When she was allowed to go outside, she would sneak out food to try to attract stray cats. When I asked why she repeatedly did this, Cynthia revealed that she had discovered, by accident, that the Happyman was terrified by cats. When he visited her, all he could do was flail out at the cats. But he almost only visited her when she was trapping strays. How ironic, I thought, that she would seek salvation in the animals she tortured for pleasure. She tearfully pleaded with me to allow her to have a cat for protection. As this was against hospital policy and health code, I instead reasoned with her by purchasing stuffed cats and safe plastic toy cats to keep in her room. She seemed happy with her new guardians, and months passed without incident until I got a call at around 3 a.m. on Saturday, June 7th, 1997. I was called by a frantic nurse who was trying to explain what was going on, but Cynthia's screaming in the background proved hearing the nurse difficult, so I rushed in to assess the situation. When I arrived, Cynthia was kicking and screaming. As the nurses tried to hold her down, I noticed she was covered in deep lacerations. I tried to calm her down to no avail, and I was forced to sedate her so that her wounds could be treated. After they carried her off, I noticed that the cat dolls I had given her were completely gutted and turned inside out, and her plastic toys were slashed with what looked like razors, which are not available to patients for obvious reasons. Over the next week, her condition deteriorated, and she was tormented by auditory hallucinations of the Happyman's laughter. It seemed that every day she would have a new cut or gash, so I decided to place her under suicide watch. I remember our last session on June 16th, in which she told me that she hadn't harmed the animals they had found in her apartment. She said the Happyman had overcome his fear of cats and would comfort her soon. She heard laughter from the woods. Next morning, I pulled up to Hampstead Hospital like any other day, but I was greeted by police cruisers and their flashing blue lights. An officer told me that Cynthia had killed the nurse watching over her the night prior and killed herself. I was in shock. The officer said they hadn't located the murder weapon, but the nurse's head had been bashed in by a hammer or like blunt instrument. As the pale-faced orderlies wheeled Cynthia's body to the morgue, the sheet caught something and revealed her face. The skin from the corners of her mouth had been stretched and hooked to either temple, and her upper lip was hooked in place, revealing her bloody facial muscles and twisting her face into a monstrous smile. Several of the staff and officers rushed out of the hallway, vomiting or growing faint at the horrific visage. When I asked the coroner what the cause of death was, she told me it was a combination of sudden cardiac arrest due to shock and blood loss, which was also due to self-mutilation. 16 years have passed since that grisly morning, and I thought I had forgotten about it and moved on. Yesterday, we received a new patient, a 17-year-old girl suffering from schizophrenia and depression. In our first session, I asked if she had any other personalities she associates with herself. She said no, but she's visited by a tall, pale man in overalls, with his facial skin stretched into a smile, who cuts her arms and legs. I felt the blood in my face drain when she showed me her journal, which included a page with this drawing and caption that read, "The Happy Man." She said she could hear laughter from the woods outside the hospital. He's telling her to smile.